What happens when Hollywood royalty meets late-night television and absolutely everything goes wrong? In just 31 seconds, one of the most shocking meltdowns in talk show history unfolded right before our eyes. And tonight, we have the exclusive inside story of how Meghan Markle went from gracious guest to getting kicked off Bill Maher's show in what can only be described as a complete and total disaster. This is the story that everyone is talking about this morning. The explosive clash that happened right here in this very studio just hours ago. You're about to hear exactly what went down, word for word, moment by moment, in what started as a simple interview and ended with security being called. The night began like any other Friday evening taping of Real Time. Bill Maher, the sharp-tongued host known for his no-nonsense approach to interviewing, was preparing to welcome his final guest of the evening. The audience was buzzing with excitement as the production team made their final preparations. Little did anyone know they were about to witness television history in the making. Meghan Markle walked onto that stage with all the confidence of someone who had conquered Hollywood, married into royalty, and built a media empire. She wore a perfectly tailored cream-colored blazer, her hair styled in loose waves, every detail crafted to project success and sophistication. The audience erupted in applause as she took her seat across from Maher, flashing that million-dollar smile that had charmed the world. But something was different tonight. Those who know Bill Maher could see it in his eyes. That look he gets when he smells something that doesn't quite add up. He had done his homework, and he was ready. "Welcome to Real Time, Meghan," Bill said, settling back in his chair with that familiar grin. "Thanks for joining us tonight." "Thank you for having me, Bill," Meghan replied, crossing her legs and adjusting her blazer. "I'm excited to be here." "So let's jump right in," Bill continued, his tone friendly but with an edge that regular viewers would recognize. "You've been pretty vocal about privacy lately, talking about how the media invades your personal space, how difficult it is to live under constant scrutiny." "That's right," Meghan nodded, her expression growing more serious. "Privacy is a fundamental human right, and I think people forget that celebrities, royals, we're human beings too. We deserve the same respect and boundaries as everyone else." The audience murmured in agreement, but Bill wasn't finished. "I absolutely agree with that," he said, leaning forward slightly. "Privacy is important. But here's what I'm curious about. You say you want privacy, yet you and Harry have signed deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars to basically share your private lives with the world. Netflix documentaries, tell-all books, podcast series where you discuss your most personal moments. How do you square that circle?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Meghan's smile flickered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. "Well, Bill, there's a difference between choosing to share your story on your own terms and having your privacy violated by tabloids and paparazzi," she said, her voice taking on a slightly defensive tone. "When Harry and I share our experiences, we're taking control of our narrative. We're telling our truth." "Your truth," Bill repeated, and anyone who knew him could hear the skeptical emphasis. "See, that phrase always gets me. Your truth, my truth. What happened to just the truth? Either something happened or it didn't, right?" "Everyone's experience is different, Bill," Meghan replied, and now there was a definite edge to her voice. "My truth is my lived experience. No one can tell me that what I experienced wasn't real." "Of course not," Bill said, holding up his hands. "I'm not questioning your experiences. I'm questioning the idea that there are multiple versions of truth. Facts are facts, aren't they?" The audience was starting to sense the tension building. Meghan shifted in her seat, her posture becoming more rigid. "I think you're missing the point," she said, her voice rising slightly. "When you've been through what I've been through, when you've faced the level of scrutiny and racism that I've faced, you understand that truth isn't always black and white. And I respect that you faced challenges," Bill said, his tone remaining calm and measured. "But let's talk about some specifics. In your interview with Oprah, you made some pretty serious allegations about the royal family. You talked about conversations regarding your son's skin color, about being denied mental health support, about feeling trapped and suicidal." "Those are not allegations, Bill," Meghan interrupted, her voice sharp now. "Those are facts. That is what happened to me." "Okay, facts," Bill said, nodding. "So when Buckingham Palace investigated the bullying claims against you and found them credible enough to change their HR policies, those are also facts, right?" Meghan's face flushed slightly. "That investigation was a sham designed to discredit me. They leaked selective information to make me look bad while hiding the real story of what I endured. So the palace's investigation into your alleged bullying of staff members doesn't count, but your claims about them should be taken at face value?" Bill asked, his eyebrows raised. "Help me understand the logic there." "You're twisting my words," Meghan said, her voice getting louder. This is exactly what the British press did to me. You're trying to make me the villain when I'm the victim here." The audience was now completely silent, watching this verbal tennis match with growing discomfort. Bill, however, seemed to be just getting started. "I'm not trying to make you anything," he said calmly. "I'm just asking questions. Isn't that what journalists are supposed to do? Or should we just accept everything celebrities tell us without question?" "I am not just some celebrity," Meghan snapped, her composure finally cracking. "I am a humanitarian, an activist, a mother. I have used my platform to make real change in the world. And that's admirable," Bill said, his voice still level. "But using your platform also means being willing to answer tough questions, doesn't it? You can't demand that people listen to your message and then get upset when they want to examine it critically." "There's a difference between critical examination and character assassination," Meghan shot back. "And right now, this feels a lot like the latter." "Character assassination?" Bill repeated, his tone incredulous. "I'm asking you to explain apparent contradictions in your public statements. If that feels like character assassination to you, maybe the problem isn't with the questions." The tension in the studio was now palpable. Audience members were exchanging worried glances, and the camera operators were getting shots they never expected to capture. Meghan's eyes flashed with anger as she leaned forward in her chair, pointing her finger directly at Bill. "You know what your problem is?" she said, her voice trembling with rage. "You sit here in your comfortable little bubble, making jokes about everyone else's pain, and you think that makes you some kind of truth teller. But you have no idea what it's like to be me." Bill remained completely calm, which only seemed to infuriate her more. "You're right. I don't know what it's like to be you," he said evenly, "but I do know what it's like to ask fair questions and expect honest answers. And I know what it looks like when someone can't handle basic scrutiny." "Basic scrutiny?" Meghan's voice cracked as she stood up from her chair. "You call this basic scrutiny? You're doing exactly what they did to me in Britain. You're trying to silence me, to make me seem crazy and unreasonable for standing up for myself." The audience gasped audibly. No guest had ever stood up during an interview on Real Time. Bill looked genuinely surprised but remained seated, his hands folded calmly in his lap. "Meghan, I think you should sit down," he said quietly. "Let's have a rational conversation here." "Don't you dare tell me to sit down," she snapped, her voice echoing through the stunned studio. "I am a grown woman, and I will not be silenced by another middle-aged white man who thinks he knows better than me about my own life." Bill's expression hardened slightly, but his voice remained controlled. "The color of my skin and my age have nothing to do with the questions I'm asking you," he said. "And if you can't answer simple questions about your public statements without having a meltdown, maybe you shouldn't be making those statements in the first place." "A meltdown?" Meghan laughed bitterly, pacing now behind her chair. "This is what you people do. When a woman, especially a woman of color, stands up for herself, you call it a meltdown. When she refuses to be bullied, you say she's being difficult." "No one is bullying you," Bill said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "I invited you onto my show. I'm treating you with respect and I'm asking you questions that any journalist would ask. If you can't handle that, then maybe television isn't the right platform for you." "How dare you," Meghan hissed, her hands shaking with fury. "How dare you question whether I belong on television? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I've accomplished?" "I know exactly who you are," Bill replied, his voice taking on a sharper edge. "You're someone who married into the most famous family in the world, then spent years complaining about how hard it was while making millions of dollars talking about how hard it was." The studio fell into complete silence. Even the camera crew seemed to hold their breath. Meghan's face went pale, then bright red. "You have no right to diminish my accomplishments. I was a successful actress before I met Harry. I had my own career, my own life, on a cable TV show that most people never heard of." Bill shot back, clearly done with trying to be diplomatic. "Let's be honest here. You were a working actress, which is great, but you weren't exactly Meryl Streep. Your real fame came from marrying a prince, and now you want to have it both ways. You want the fame and the money that comes from being royal, but you don't want any of the responsibility or scrutiny." "That is not true," Meghan screamed, her voice breaking. "I gave up everything for that family. I gave up my career, my independence, my identity. And they threw me away like garbage the moment I didn't fit their perfect little mold." "You gave up a supporting role on a TV show," Bill said dryly, "and in return, you got to be a duchess, live in palaces, and have access to resources most people can only dream of. Forgive me if I don't break out the world's smallest violin." "You are unbelievable," Meghan said, her voice shaking with emotion. "This is exactly the kind of treatment that drove me to thoughts of suicide. This is what almost killed me. And here you are doing it again." Bill's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. "I'm sorry you went through a difficult time. I truly am. But you can't use your mental health struggles as a shield against all criticism. That's not fair, and it's not healthy." "Don't you dare lecture me about what's fair," Meghan shot back. "You have no idea what fair looks like. Fair would be treating me with the same respect you show your male guests. Fair would be not ambushing me with gotcha questions designed to make me look bad." "These aren't gotcha questions," Bill said, his voice rising for the first time. "These are basic follow-up questions about things you've said publicly. If you can't handle people asking you to explain your own words, then maybe you should stop saying them." "I'm done," Meghan announced, throwing her hands up in the air. "I'm done with this interview. I'm done with your disrespect. And I'm done with men like you thinking you can treat women like me this way." She started to walk toward the edge of the stage, but Bill called after her. "You can't just walk away every time someone challenges you," he said. "That's not how the real world works." Meghan spun around, her face contorted with rage. "The real world? You want to talk about the real world? The real world is full of people like you who think they can tear down women who dare to speak their truth. Well, I won't stand for it anymore." "Your truth again?" Bill said, shaking his head. "You know what the truth is? The truth is you can't handle being held accountable for anything you say or do. You want all the benefits of being a public figure with none of the responsibilities." "You are a horrible, horrible man," Meghan said, her voice breaking with emotion. "And this show, this whole thing, it's exactly what's wrong with this world. You tear people down for entertainment, and you call it journalism." Bill stood up from his chair, his own composure finally starting to crack. "You know what, Meghan? You're right. This interview is over. Not because you're ending it, but because I am. I've had enough guests on this show who can handle tough questions without having a complete breakdown. I don't need someone on my stage who can't conduct themselves professionally." The audience was completely silent, watching in shock as this unprecedented scene unfolded. "Are you kicking me off your show?" Meghan asked, her voice a mixture of disbelief and fury. "Yes, I am," Bill said firmly. "I've given you every opportunity to have a reasonable conversation, and instead you've turned this into a circus. I'm asking you to leave." "Fine," Meghan said, grabbing her purse from beside her chair. "But know this, Bill Maher, the world is going to hear about this. The world is going to know how you treated me tonight." "Good," Bill replied, sitting back down in his chair. "Let them know that I don't tolerate guests who can't answer basic questions without having a meltdown. Maybe it'll save other hosts from wasting their time." As Meghan stormed off the stage, her heels clicking angrily against the floor, Bill turned back to the camera with a weary expression. "Well, folks," he said to the stunned studio audience, "that's a first for real time. In 30 years of doing television, I've never had a guest walk off because I asked them to explain their own public statements. I guess there really is a first time for everything." The audience, still in shock, began to applaud slowly. Then, with growing enthusiasm, as security personnel followed Meghan backstage to ensure she left the building safely, Bill shook his head, looking directly into the camera. "When you can't handle questions, maybe you shouldn't be making statements. That's all for tonight, everybody. We'll see you next week." And with that, one of the most explosive interviews in late-night television history came to its dramatic conclusion, leaving everyone who witnessed it with a story they would never forget.